Hello everyone, welcome to today's video where we'll be learning a tactic that is played in 99% of your games whether you're aware of it or not. And it's one of those tactics I normally teach first to my beginners. Now the tactic I'm talking about is basically a pin. Now you'll learn about what is a pin, what to do with a pin, and what not to do with a pin. So stay tuned and enjoy. So here, I've made the first move ready here. Just now if you see in here, the knight probably just went to d5. Assume that the knight went to d5, attacking the poor rook on b4. And if you look at here, the knight on d5 is already lost. And you might wonder, wait, what? Coach Shi, like, wait, what? The knight on d5 is lost as long as white plays this move, rook to d4. Now, rook to d4 is basically what we call a pin. White sets up a pin. Now, in normal circumstances, if you look here, the knight on d5, right, can run normally. But in this position, no, because it is pinned. If the knight goes, the piece behind it gets shot, which is the king goes bye-bye. So the idea of a pin is basically, if the piece in front of it moves, which is the knight here, the piece behind it gets shot. So most often the time, the piece in front is lost. So here, let's just say black goes king c7, trying to run away from the pin. What you notice here is that white can just take the rook on. Sorry, white can use the rook and take the knight on d5, and essentially, white just won a knight, and it's probably going to do it for king and rook, checkmate. Now let's proceed to another position here. So you understand what's a pin already. Let's try to practice a bit. Alright, so we're going to do a bit of tactics here. Now if you look at this position here, it is white to move. Material is essentially equal. Black has knight, rook, and pawn for the queen. The queen is 9 points, and the rook and knight and pawn all together is 9 points. Now it's probably an equal position if white could not find this move. So let's see if you can find a move that you can win material with white. Your hint here is you're probably going to have to set up a pin. Feel free to pause the video if needed. Okay, so in this position, if you say that white should move the queen to a1, right, winning material, you're right, because it sets up a pin. Now again, in normal circumstances, the rook would like to run because it's under attack, no one can protect it, the knight cannot protect it, the pawn cannot protect it, and the king is obviously too far away. But unfortunately, again, the idea of a pin is that if the rook moves, the piece behind it gets shot, right? Which is the king. So the king has to sidestep the pin. And now, what happens next is, thank you for the rook. So white won the rook with the pin and probably is going to proceed to win this game. Of course, it's not easy because white has a queen, but it's gonna, black has these pawns that are one side of the board, but white is probably gonna proceed for win, maybe by slowly bringing the queen closer and walking the king up the board. Alright? So, here, we've understand with using pins. We can use pins to win material. Now, let us try to use a pin in another situation or so. It's the same position where you win material, but it's a bit trickier than usual here. Now, here is black to move. How does black use a pin to win material here? So I'll let you pause here. It's black to move. Alright. So here black already has a pin. Okay. The way that black uses the pin is by first sacrificing the most important piece, which is the queen. Now you're gonna be wondering like, wait, what? So black just sacrificed the queen? Yeah, because if white captures back, the queen is free. You see that? Because the piece in front of it moves, the pawn moves. And now, here, black is already up a lot of material and will proceed to win. Oops, here. Yeah, will proceed to probably win by pushing the pawn or probably doing some sort of attack soon. So here, if you notice here, queen takes e4, this bishop is actually not free. Here, the hint here is that the pawn is pinned actually. So actually, the pawn does not protect the bishop. A lot of beginners will assume that, wow, this bishop on e4 is free. Is guarded by the pawn, but it's actually just an illusion. Pin pieces, which is the pawn here, do not protect because it is pinned. Pawn takes and bye-bye. Alright? So far, you've managed to try a few positions here. No worries if you got it wrong or whatever. The point is I want you to try and practice what you learn. There's a lot of ways to practice the pin, and on Lichess there's a lot of things you can do with puzzle, and you can even choose puzzle teams. Alright, so let's proceed to the next position, shall we? Now, the next position here, let me just switch it up for you a bit, is basically how to use the pin here. Now, if you look at this position here, it is white to move, okay? Let's just assume black played a5, which is not really a great move. Black here probably should have played bishop d7, but I'll tell you why later. Now, if you look at this position here, can you spot the pin here? Okay, the first thing first here is that white already has a pin. And the question is how to use that pin. If you look here, if you look closely, the bishop on a4 is already pinning the knight. See that? The problem is that for black, this knight cannot move because if the knight moves, piece behind it gets shot, which is the king. So here is white to move. How does white use this pin? Alright, I'll let you try. I'll give you probably a few minutes to figure it out. Probably maybe just 1 minute until 30 seconds like that. You should be able to figure this out. And if no worries, take your time. This is a bit of a tricky one, okay? So here, I'll let you take your time. So, if your answer, okay, if you answered this with d5, absolutely right. Now, probably you might answer this with something like, okay, coach, I might want to take the pawn, right? And when the pawn is captured, maybe pawn captures. And maybe you say, coach, maybe I want to take the knight. Pawn takes. And your idea is essentially when you swap the pieces, you still win material. Yeah, you win a pawn and you're probably going to win a second pawn because this is what we call a fork, where you attack two pieces at once. Black cannot save both pieces. So you could go here where you win 2 pawns, but what else you can try is also d5, where you use the pin to win the knight. See that? Because the problem for black here, right? This is a better move, by the way, because the knight can't run. Let's just say black tries to defend, right? By the way, if the knight runs, if you're wondering, the knight runs, the king behind it, the piece behind it, which is the king, goes bye-bye. So black probably says, okay, I'd like to block your pin. Okay, you're not going to do any damage. Except no, you use the pawn to win the knight. See that? So here you want 2 points of material. Let's just say we go here because pawn for knight. You give your opponent 1 point of material, but you get 3 points. It's basically you give your opponent $1 and you get $3. So you robbed your friend of $2, yeah? So if you do here, right, if you follow this position, yes, you do win $2, right? But this one is not so easy to play. But yeah, of course, here you could argue that, yeah, 2 pawns here, right? You both win equal points of material. But normally, what's slightly better is that if you win a piece, you win a knight, yeah? Compared to winning 2 pawns, yeah? So one thing you'll learn is about putting pressure on the pin piece. So from this puzzle here, you can see that here, white puts pressure on the knight because it is pinned. So you attack it again. We call this PPP. Put pressure on the pin piece. Alright, or in my simple words, just attack the pin piece, the piece that cannot move. It's an easy target. Let's try another position here. Now this position is taken from one of my favorite books, Bain Chess Tactics for Students. And here it is black to move. Here probably you can argue that white is winning because white has a rook and pawn, and if you're not careful, white is probably going to promote this pawn pretty soon. Now, I say pretty soon unless if black plays this move here. Alright? So here is black to move. How do you save this lost position for black? You can use the pin here. Okay? So, you can pause the video and go find it. So here, if your answer is bishop c7, absolutely wonderful. Alright? For those who didn't get, no worries, it happens. Yeah, we're all starting out and we all make mistakes from time to time. Heck, I can even overlook some simple pins in my games. So no worries, take your time and practice if you can. You can always go to puzzles here and always click on puzzle teams to practice your pin, okay? So the most important thing for me is always you have fun and you try your best. Alright, so enough of me talking about this. Here, bishop c7 sets up a pin. Why? It's a very nasty pin because if the rook moves, the piece behind it, which is the king, goes bye-bye. So here, says, look, I want to defend my rook. And if you take, yeah, this is still a theoretical draw, but in a lot of beginners games, this might not actually be a draw if they do not know how to play king e7 and play proper king and pawn endgames. Now, here, again, you could give up your bishop for the rook. You give your friend maybe $5. So you give your friend $3, which is the bishop, and you get $5. Of course, you want $2, but there's this pawn coming still. So what about another way? How this piece is already pinned, right? Oops. Right, so how do we use the pin to our advantage? Remember PPP? Put pressure on the pin piece, or in simple words, attack the pin piece. How does black win the rook without losing the bishop? Simple. King to f6. Black says, okay, I bring in another attacker, and since this rook cannot run, I'm in no rush to eat you. Why would you eat a burger? Let's say you have a big burger. Why would you eat it in 1 second when you can slowly savor it? Right? You can maybe eat it for like 10 minutes or even half an hour. You can be like, oh wow, the sky up there looks like a like a dog. It looks very beautiful. The sky looks beautiful. The clouds look very colorful today. Right, so I'm starting to sound like a psychopath all of a sudden, right? Like slowly, enjoy killing your opponent's pieces. Okay, but that's a topic for another day. So here, white says, okay, look, I probably have to go king e4. I want to get out of this mess. Bye-bye. Right, no more pin. So it is time for us to whack here. And here is probably a draw because even though you're up a bishop, right, you have a bishop versus pawn, you're up 2 points of material, bishop alone cannot checkmate. And most probably, you're going to win this pawn on c4. If the pawn pushes, even let's just say here, let's say we continue a bit, it's probably a draw because let's say bishop d6, even if white just blunders the pawn, you probably cannot checkmate here. Actually, you can't checkmate here, sorry. Bishop and king cannot checkmate. Bishop and king cannot checkmate here. So even if white tries to help to promote the pawn, maybe like something like this, your bishop is still going to sacrifice itself for the pawn and it's still a draw. But you see the idea of a pin. When the piece is pinned, you can add more attackers and win that piece easily, which is the rook on e5 here. So we are going to go to a very important part of this video. I believe most people don't cover this, but I'm going to tell you what can go wrong with actually a pin. Sorry. When it comes to a pin, many things can go wrong. So let's go through a few of those situations, shall we? This is probably taken from one of my games. Yep, this is taken from one of my games. It is black to move here, or my opponent's playing black. And in this position, he saw that this knight and this pawn was under attack. It's actually a fork. Probably black could have played knight b6, trying to defend the pawn. Not losing it. However, black decided to be a bit of a greedy person. Not really some sort of greedy, but try to counter attack. Okay. Now, if black plays rook to c8 here, and here it looks like the bishop is actually pinned, right? If the bishop moves, probably the rooks on c1 goes bye-bye. Except the bishop can move. That's the funny part. Black here actually just lost more material because the rook on c1 is actually protected. See that? When the pin piece, you see this piece is actually protected. The piece behind it is protected. So this bishop is not actually pinned. It can actually move. Probably bishop takes d7. And if I'm not wrong, after here, black shortly resign after here. Because black is just down the rook and my pieces are going to slowly roll over them. Not only that, this pawn is free. In the future, it's very hard to guard it. And white has too much material and black has no activity. But I always recommend beginners, right? You should go and play on your games no matter what. Because it's very easy. Let's just say even if your opponent is winning, it's still very easy to draw. Or you have a good chance of maybe, not even making a lost game into a half point. You can maybe even come back from it. There's a lot of chances here because beginners in most cases tend to hang pieces and they tend to panic when they're winning. Because they say like, oh my god, I'm winning. And then all of a sudden, oh my god, where's my queen? So those things happen. Okay, so the last position is actually taken from, I'm going to go through another last position here. Yeah, this position is actually taken from one of my students' game. Alright, it's taken from one of my students' game. So I'm just going to go to the important part. Okay, okay, rook d6 here. So let us pause to assess the situation here. Now, this is a bit of a bonus for you beginners here, okay? So a lot of beginners will tend to look at, as a beginner, the best way to determine who is winning is always this. You look at who has more material here. So if I ask you here, who is probably winning, alright, I'll let you take a hint here. Alright, if you count the material, right? If you look at the board, it looks pretty same. But if you count closely, white is actually out 1 pawn. So you can say white is probably winning in material. Now, maybe a few things you want to add on. You say, coach, I don't feel that, okay, obviously that material is just one aspect. But most of the time, material is king. Cash is king. Now, maybe you can look at a few actual examples like, okay, besides material, besides white being up a pawn, what else is white winning on? If I give you a hint here, you can look at, you can probably say, I give you a hint, you compare this. Which king is kind of safer here? If you look here, this king is getting blasted in the face. I would say so. And this king is pretty much sleepy. It's like Angugu, I can go sleep any day, anytime. There's no bombs falling over my head, right? So this king is safer. This king is probably not that safe. And also we can look at the third aspect is piece activity. So material, king safety, white is winning in both. King is safer, white is up 1 pawn here. And another aspect we can always look at is piece activity. Who is more active? We could say probably white here. We have a pin here, by the way. If you're wondering why black played rook d6 here, probably black was trying to overprotect here and black cannot take, remember? Black cannot take here because it's a pin. Again, if the b6 pawn takes the queen, it's illegal because the king goes bye-bye. So here, it is white to move here. Can you find a better move here for white? Here, white play rook c4, which actually blunders a pawn, believe me or not. Yeah, so here, one of my students playing white played c4. Okay, probably trying to get, I assume trying to get the rook here and get more attackers in here. Trying to put a lot of pressure on the pin piece. Yeah, which is good. Yeah, he's probably trying to put more pressure on the pin piece. However, the pawn is free, so it's not really a good move here actually. So it's a nice idea, it's just the execution part. Okay, so here, can you see a better move for white here? I give you a hint. You're gonna have to use this pin well. The hint is you're not gonna put more pressure. You're not gonna add more. You're not gonna put more pressure on the pin piece. Actually, yeah, you're gonna add more pressure on this b6 pawn, but it involves winning material here. So take your time here. Find a better move besides c4. So hopefully you pause the video and you take your time. If you manage to find bishop takes c5, absolutely wonderful. This is a missed opportunity and a lot of people miss this. You'll be wondering, wait a second, isn't that just a free bishop? So black takes and okay, you take and the pawn can take, alright? I've said no. Don't forget, when the piece is pinned, it does not defend. It cannot move. So pin pieces do not defend. This pawn here does not defend here. So in fact, there's only 2 attackers. If you count here, count this properly. A hint here is always count attackers and defenders. And there's 1 defender. 2 attackers versus 1 defender. You can see it well. 2 is probably bigger than 1. And 2 is probably going to win. So takes, and if black takes, it's probably game over because they lost their queen. And next, we have a lot of open powers to blast the king with. So here, not only does white take, white also puts more pressure on the pin piece. So here, I would like to end the video and I would like to say thank you for those watching. Maybe a bonus position I might give you here is, okay, let's give you one. Before we end off the video, if you want to, I should say, okay, let's just take from a game. Here it is white to move. Do you think that white should retreat the knight? Probably should go knight d3, knight b7, takes. Or do you feel that here you can probably win some material here? What about rook takes e5? So you might want to consider what happens here. Does knight run? Or probably try, white can be a bit more greedy and grab the pawn on e5. So, you know, maybe you can answer them down in the comments. You made it this far. Good luck with your calculation. This position is a bit of a tougher one. Alright, so this is a mix of intermediate and beginner level. Okay, so good luck and see you soon. Bye bye.